There's one person that was more shocked than most about the invoice coming in and the amount.
Did they pay it?
Yes.
Karen Reed's defense team admitting, yes, they did pay ARCA witnesses, who they previously said they barely spoke to. We're looking ahead to Judge Beverly Cannone's possible decisions and how they'll affect the retrial. Plus, the family of YouTube mom turned convicted child abuser Ruby Franke opening up, talking about how vlogging ruined their lives while promoting their upcoming docuseries. Plus, the Murdaughs are back on their home turf, shall we say, as Buster Murdaugh is taking his lawsuit against Netflix and other media to the Low Country. We're talking with an attorney who represents the family of Stephen Smith. Also this hour, family and friends could be tipping the scales in the bedtime murder trial for Jermaine Bass. We're asking what really happened after the birthday dinner the night of the shooting. It's all coming up next for you right here on Opening Statements. Good Wednesday morning to you and welcome to Opening Statements. I'm your host, Julie Grant. This is the show where we get you all primed and ready to go for the big court day ahead. And it is a big day today and we got a big show planned, so let's get to it. Grab your cup of coffee right now. It's time for my opening statement. The Amber Alert is still active. Investigators are still working to find Sebastian Rogers. Today marks 1 year since that search officially began. 15-year-old Sebastian vanished from his home in Hendersonville, Tennessee on the evening of February 25th, 2024. The morning of the 26th, the search began and hasn't ceased. Sebastian was last seen wearing black glasses, a black sweatshirt, and black sweatpants. His birthday is in December, so he would be 16 years old now. He's also living with autism. Sebastian's case has drawn attention from all over the world, and here on Opening Statements, we will continue to be a voice for victims like Sebastian. Kids just don't vanish. Somebody knows what happened to this innocent child. So let's hope and pray that another year doesn't pass before Sebastian is found and brought back home. And as the search continues, big hat tip to all the incredible people who've put so much time and so much love into searching for sweet Sebastian. Our world needs more advocates like you for children who go missing like Sebastian. That's my opening statement. Let me know if you like it. Right now, it's time for your daily docket.
When did they issue a warrant?
So what happened is we have to take you to our warrant room for that information to get entered, and then after that gets entered, before we can take you to the jail, to the local jail.
Okay, because I didn't know there was a warrant. How would I know that?
There was a warrant, and Mama Donna is going to be appearing in court this morning for a motions hearing ahead of her trial that starts at 9 a.m. Eastern. We will be there. Also happening in Florida, testimony continues in the bedtime murder trial for defendant Jermaine Bass. Court starts up at 9 a.m. in that case. And in California, the state's case continues in the celebrity hairstylist murder trial for Monica Cementilli. That's going to start up at noon Eastern, and we will have it for you. Now, let's turn to our top story. The invoice was paid. Karen Reed's defense attorneys confirmed to the court that they paid crash experts from ARCA. Now, this was for the first trial. Now, that was one of the bombshell moments in the hearing on Tuesday. It was a long hearing, and we really didn't get to a conclusion in that hearing. Court TV crime and justice correspondent Matt Johnson was there and filed this report.
Julie, good morning. Bombshell here in Dedham, Massachusetts, as Judge Beverly Cannone learns that the defense did in fact pay the ARCA experts. On Tuesday, defense attorney Robert Alessi argued that the Commonwealth was misstating the facts when special prosecutor Hank Brennan claimed the defense did not disclose communications or payment with ARCA experts related to testimony during the first trial. Judge Beverly Cannone did not make any decision on Tuesday, but heard arguments from both sides. Take a listen.
I'll move on, but the point is it is not incumbent on the court
to provide the proof that the defense was given the opportunity to bring in today to clarify the record. Instead, it is the typical 101, blame everybody but themselves. There's no acknowledgement. There's no contrition. And there's no confidence that we are going to get all the materials that we're entitled to.
I can't reveal attorney-client communications, but I can tell you there's one person that was more shocked than most about the invoice coming in and the amount.
Did they pay it?
Yes.
The defense also argued they corrected the mistake and preemptively argued that revoking Alan Jackson's right to practice in the Commonwealth would violate Karen Reed's Sixth Amendment rights. Karen Reed telling me outside the courthouse here that she will appeal if that's the decision. Both Hank Brennan and also Alan Jackson not making any comment. That's the very latest from the courthouse. I'll send it back to you, Julie.
Our thanks to Matt Johnson for that report. Now let's bring in our guest to talk about this. I want to welcome in now nationally known radio host and the creator and host of Road Patrol Live, John DePietro, and criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor and law professor, Franz Borghardt. Good morning to you both. I want to start with just your general reactions to that hearing that took most of the day yesterday and didn't have a conclusion. John DePietro, would you start us off, please?
Julie, what we found, this is a new phase of the trial because people need to remember the Reed defense, they're running a two-prong attack. One is inside the courtroom, one is outside the courtroom. Let's talk about inside the courtroom. This is a very cautious judge now. This is a judge that came right out and said, I have an itemized bill about trial prep from these witnesses. This is a judge now that seemingly every word the defense utters, she views it very skeptical. That it needs to also then be confirmed. We also saw that anytime they give her something she hasn't seen before, short recess, goes into chambers, probably has her staff with herself look it over, then she comes back. This is a different dynamic. Alan Jackson, who was all silent yesterday, he is not having the run of the courtroom. I also want to talk about the outside the courtroom, and what Matt Johnson just said was very significant. This business of no comment coming from Yannetti and Jackson. Julie, that was never happening in the first trial. And what was very significant yesterday was Hank Brennan pointed this out, that Alan Jackson very casually walking out of court last week said, of course we didn't pay them. When asked about it, they had to defend it. And he was saying, I'd say the same thing, like, of course we didn't pay them for that. Alan Jackson leaving court yesterday, what did he say? No comment. Completely different dynamic than we saw first time around. The defense, Julie, also, we've been hearing this narrative. The judge wants to stay on schedule and move things along. She made it very clear. Hey, let's going to go through this word by word, line by line. Let's block off 3 days next week. Hank Brennan, Julie, is playing chess. Every move is very strategic. Yesterday, he talked a tenth the amount of time that Robert Alisi spoke. Alisi, he's the type, you ask him what time it is, he'll start explaining how to build a clock. The defense is trying to drown this out and just play the long game, but the judge made it very clear. We're in no rush here. Every word matters. Did Jackson say pay for time? Alisi had to take that back. This is a completely different dynamic than we found the first time around.
Such sharp analysis from you, John. I couldn't agree with you more. And two of my favorite legal analyst guests called what Alesi did a filibuster yesterday. Matt Timpanek and Joe Krowski both said it was like a filibuster. It just went on and on and on. Franz Borghardt, first, your initial reaction to what we saw yesterday, your thoughts as the day concluded.
I don't see how Jackson gets to continue to enjoy being a guest in the Commonwealth. She does have a constitutional right to her choice of counsel, assuming that choice of counsel can practice law in that jurisdiction. And we all, look, anybody who's practicing law, anyone who has a bar card swears an oath before they start practicing to uphold the Constitution and uphold the laws of the state that they're in. And look, let's not mince words. They lied to the court. They lied to the jury because this was a big part of their defense, right? Why would these experts come in and lie? They're not, they're neutral. They're not getting paid. I mean, that was essentially the argument in trial number 1 and pre-trial trial number 1. So now we have your pants are on fire. You lied to the court. I don't see how Jackson gets to stay on the case. Now, he might get to, but the bigger issue for the Karen Reed team is their credibility is now shot, both in the courtroom and in the court of public opinion. And so things like, hey, are those dog bites? Hey, did this happen? All of their credibility is now affected by the stupidity of not just disclosing, yeah, we paid them. Had they just disclosed it in trial 1, they still would have been able to use those witnesses.
Right.
So I don't understand this tactical move by them. It was lying for a really, really, really stupid reason.
Right. I couldn't agree more, Franz. Yes. Such an important distinction. Hank Brennan made it. It's worth a repeat here that it's perfectly proper to hire expert witnesses to evaluate whatever the issue is in your case, give an opinion, they get paid for their time. Everybody gets paid to do their job, right? Nothing wrong with that. The problem was not disclosing it, what you just said, Franz. And as you both know, this was brought out in the hearing not only in the verbal statements made that were cited by the transcript taken down that the judge reviewed, and also the defense team printed it in a motion. We have that, and Hank Brennan brought this up at the very end of the hearing in one of the most recent motions the Reed team filed. Look at this. Look at about the 3rd line down, 4th line down. They call them these exculpatory expert witnesses who were not hired or paid for by the defense. Not hired or paid for by the defense filed this motion, and Brennan noted on the record, Alan Jackson signed it, David Yannetti signed it, and Mr. Alessi signed it. The only one who didn't was Ms. Little, who did the filing. And so not only were representations made verbally, but also we have this in print as well. Let's take a listen to a clip where Matt Johnson approached Karen Reed after court yesterday and her reaction to his question.
Are you worried that your defense will be removed?
Of course I'd be worried to lose any member of my defense team.
What will that mean? Well,
it would mean an appeal.
Okay, so knowing that if Alan Jackson is sidelined, there's going to be a big fight. Judge Cannone has to know this, Franz. She has to know that this is a problem. Did it seem to you like, and feel free to disagree with it, it seems to me like she's trying to give this defense team every opportunity to clear this up, every benefit of the doubt, because it seems the last thing she wants to do is break up this team and have yet another fight in this mess of a case that never should have become so complicated.
Well, so the problem is that Alan Jackson is now a material witness to and subject of a fraud. Let's not mince words. I mean, filing a false public record is generally a crime in most of the 50 states. So on the one hand, she does have this right to a constitutional choice of her counsel. And yes, removing him creates an issue for her that is appealable. But I don't see an appellate court saying, if in fact he did what he's accused of doing, I don't see the Massachusetts Supreme Court or a higher court saying, you know what, Judge, you can't remove him. He is a guest in the Commonwealth right now, right? I don't have a license to practice law in Massachusetts. If Massachusetts lets me practice law, I'm subject to their rules. I'm subject to their professional guidelines, their ethics guidelines. And if I run afoul of that, at any time, the Massachusetts court or Supreme Court can say, you know what, Mr. Borkhardt, you're not welcomed here anymore. And Alan Jackson's no different. And let's not mince words. If in fact he did what they are saying he did, he broke the law.
You're absolutely right, Professor. John DePietro, let me hearken back to something you said, an excellent point. You said it's a two-prong attack that the defense is putting forth, one in the courtroom, one in the court of public opinion. Are you surprised we haven't seen the judge impose a gag order? I was thinking about this yesterday, especially seeing Karen Reed talking to reporters, smiling, all of that, on such a day of such seriousness where her defense team, could all be in jeopardy. I'm stunned it hasn't happened yet. I'd love your thoughts on this, please.
See, great for you to pick up on that, Julie. I was thinking the same thing. She has now become the de facto spokesperson for the defense. In the past, Yannetti and Jackson, they would literally hold court outside of court, but they were giving the media one-liners, going back and forth, always commenting and everything. Yesterday, you suddenly saw, Jackson is silent, Yannetti is silent. Karen Reed, she's now the person who won't take the stand is suddenly now the spokesperson for the defense. She also threw out that, she doesn't believe that the federal investigation is over. I mean, no one believes that. And then afterwards, she's stumbling along, trying to give the media a soundbite. That's what I mean by this is a new dynamic, because she's not a comfortable spokesperson, certainly not as polished as Yannetti and Jackson. I think at this point, Julie, they would even welcome a gag order if it came in, because then that would just, give them excuse to why they're not saying anything. I think if I'm Hank Brennan, I hold back and then let her just continue to try to be the one person speaking. Otherwise, they're all silent outside the courthouse.
Oh, such great points, John. Yeah, you're right. Hank Brennan, he's going to get her, whether she takes the stand or not. All the statements she's made to the media, he's going to have a field day. He has brought an awareness to this case and really he's decimated many facets of the defense and things that were put in the court of public opinion before the trial has even started. So April 1st is when it's supposed to begin, and this hearing is supposed to continue next week, the hearing to see whether the defense team perpetrated a fraud on the court. Thank you both so much for your analysis. Franz, you're able to come with us. John DePietro, thank you so much. Friends at home, do yourself a favor, follow John on social media. Coming up next here on Opening Statements.
I was led to believe that this world was an evil place, filled with cops who control, hospitals that injure, government agencies that brainwash, and children who need abused.
The family of convicted YouTube mom Ruby Franke opening up now about the dangers of social media. Plus, a possible big win for Buster. His libel suit just got moved to his home county. Two innocent children put to bed,
only to awaken to the sound of gunfire.
Now a father stands trial accused of shooting his own kids in their bunk beds, killing one.
I hope that this individual feels the full weight of the criminal justice system and never sees the light of day.
Court TV takes you inside this tragic case,
as a jury must now decide the fate of this father.
He's emaciated. He's got tape around his legs. He's hungry and he's thirsty. This kid has obviously been, I think he's been detained. He's obviously covered in wounds.
You remember that 911 call, right? It was the one that set off all the alarm bells in the case against Ruby Franke. The family of the former momfluencer is now speaking out ahead of a brand new docuseries that pulls back the layers of her child abuse. The popular vlogger rose to fame by sharing her controversial parenting advice on YouTube, but later wound up pleading guilty to aggravated child abuse crimes and is now serving time behind bars. Franke's estranged husband, Kevin, spoke with ABC News and cautioned against the pitfalls of social media.
There is real danger when you place yourself or your family, your children out onto public social media, to be just careful with who they choose to put their faith in, to put their trust in, because it can have massive consequences in your life.
We're asking, was the vlogging the catalyst behind the abuse? Let's talk about it. Let's bring back in attorney Franz Borghardt and welcome in criminal defense attorney and civil rights attorney Kesia Early. Good morning to you both. Kesia, let's start with you, please. What do you think about it? Could the blogging have been a catalyst, or do you think this was something always going on before the filming started?
I think we can take that into consideration. Good morning, Julie, by the way, because oftentimes what I've realized with these social media moms or vloggers is that they look at the comments, they read the comments, and then it becomes an addiction. And in this case, we know that Ruby Franke, she was rooted with these strongly held religious beliefs, excuse me, and she created this perfect persona on social media. But we know behind closed doors, there was starvation, solitary confinement with her children, abuse. And thankfully, the son was brave enough to not only escape, but to secure help needed for himself as well as his siblings. But I do believe that her connection with the co-defendant in this case, her rising followers, I think she had over 2 million on YouTube, in conjunction with some of the comments that she read. And I believe that that was her guidance to create more content, which ultimately led to her downfall.
Right, right. Great point. I've got a clip of her in the courtroom. This is where she's addressing her crimes.
To my babies, my 6 little chicks, you were a part of me. I was the mama duck who was consistently leading you to safety. I can see now, over the past 4 years, I was in a deep undercurrent that led us to danger.
Oh, the mama duck. Okay. Franz, what do you think about her and the vlogging and the child abuse she committed?
The mama duck comment feels a little bit too little too late at this point. So look, the end of the day is the mental health component to all of this is certainly a mitigator, but it doesn't excuse the behavior. It doesn't rise to the level of her not being able to distinguish between right and wrong. And to some degree, there is a prosecutorial argument that in some respects it makes it worse, right? Because she, it's a self, perpetuating flame. She's doing these things to get the attention. So I don't like the I got a lot of attention defense, and the comments made me, it doesn't work well for me, and I don't think it's going to work well for anybody. So I think she's going to have to pay her debt to society, as she should, because we need to discourage this kind of behavior in exchange for attention and fame.
Yeah, great points. She makes me sick, this lady. So Kevin and Chad, the former couple's oldest son, aren't the only Franke family members speaking out about Ruby and her good buddy Jody Hildebrand, also in prison. Sherry Franke is also telling her side of her story in a new memoir. So she is Ruby's oldest daughter. She sat down with ABC News to talk about the abuse that she suffered at the hands of her mother and what she thought of the strange relationship between Ruby and Jody. Take a listen.
Sometimes I'll see myself in the mirror and I'm like, oh my gosh, I look like her or I sound like her, but I don't want to be anything like her.
What was that relationship between the two of them?
Ruby tried to be secretive about it, and so I don't know all the details, but just the vibes that I was getting was that something was strange between them.
Yeah, it was weird for sure. Could Ruby's kids be following in her footsteps with the vlogging, a YouTube channel, the broadcasting of their, personal lives with the Docuseries? What do we think? Do we think that they want to be public, kind of like Mom? Not saying they're anything like their mother, but you know what I mean. Do they want the spotlight? Kesia, back to you, please.
Yeah, I don't think they necessarily want the spotlight for the fame. I think that they're utilizing their platform as a teaching method or to help others who may have been in a similar situation. But it also can be therapeutic, right? Because what do you do after you've gone through so many years of abuse at the hands of someone who is supposed to care and nurture for you? And in this case, it's their mother. So I think that this is their way of healing. Everyone heals differently, but also their way of maybe helping others who is experiencing that and don't have an outlet. And I think she cleared it up and said it matter-of-factly that although she may resemble her mother, she does not want to be anything like her mother. And I believe that maybe she'll use it cautiously, especially if she decides to have children later on, to protect them as opposed to exposing them for self-gain.
Right. It takes a lot of courage to do what Sherry Franke is doing, all of them, so they're sharing this in this docuseries. Can't be easy as they're still healing from everything that happened to them, especially those little kids. My gosh. Franz, your thoughts on this, please?
I think we need to be real careful about, look, making a story, doing a documentary after being the victim of a crime, this is nothing new, right? And I think victims of crimes and those who are collateral damage of crimes should be able to do this. In the same breath, we have a lot of laws that prohibit those people convicted of crimes from profiting off of their crimes. And we have a delicate balance here of, and look, I agree. There is healing in this, but man, oh man, is this case just kind of make me feel like all of this vlogging, all of this online attention-seeking behavior, and look, lest I cast stones in glass houses, I'm guilty of it too. It makes everyone, or it should make everyone have a pause of, what are we watching that's really real versus this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know how they can do it. I just, and everybody responds differently to trauma, right? I mean, maybe this is in some way therapeutic for them, who knows? But we wish all those kids the very best as they go on with their lives and go on without their mom. Franz and Casey, thank you for the analysis. Stand by kindly, please. We're gonna hit a break. When we come back, here's what we have for you here on Opening Statements.
He asked me if I was sitting down, and I was like, yeah. And then he, sounded odd, and then he told me that my mom and brother had been shot.
Buster's back in the headlines, this time for getting his libel case moved to his home county. Plus, friends and family of defendant Jermaine Bass could be tipping the scales in the bedtime murder trial. We'll be right back.
Bubba.
It's a guinea.
This is a chicken.
In our spotlight this morning, big news for the Murdaugh family. We know Buster Murdaugh, the son of convicted killer Alec Murdaugh, is suing several media outlets, accusing them of libel. Now, a federal judge says that some of Buster's cases, including the one against Netflix, must be heard locally in Hampton County, South Carolina, not in state court over in Charleston. Now, last year, Buster Murdaugh claimed that documentaries alluded to him as being involved in the 2015 violent death of Stephen Smith, who was an openly gay teenager in class with Buster. Now, you may remember the Netflix doc, Murdaugh Murders, A Southern Scandal.
The Murdaughs would just make someone disappear.
There were so many rumors that Buster and Stephen were intimate together.
Stephen's death is now intertwined with the Murdaugh.
Lawyer had found drugs under Alec's bed.
She knew too much.
It's like massive playground.
The way Paul told it, it was for drugs and strippers and everything. You can't believe everything Paul says neither.
So that was one of the things that prompted Buster to file these lawsuits. And we should point out that the media companies, including Netflix, have denied the allegations brought against them. So what does this latest move mean? Could the judge's decision to move some cases end up being a big win for Buster? Let's bring in attorney Eric Bland, who represents Stephen Smith's family. Eric, good morning. Thank you for coming on. Your thoughts on whether this is a win for Buster?
Good morning. It is a win for Buster. Julie, as a lawyer, you know that federal courts are courts of limited jurisdiction, and you either have to have a federal statute at issue or you have to have diversity of citizenship between the plaintiffs and the defendant. In this case, Buster named a South Carolina defendant, Michael DeWitt, who's a journalist from Hampton County, to try to keep the case in Hampton County. The other defendants removed the case to federal court to Judge Gergel's court in Charleston and said that naming Michael DeWitt was a sham defendant, meaning it was done to bust diversity. What Judge Gergel ruled is, in connection with the motion to sever, some of the defendants said, look, the Netflix documentary involving Michael DeWitt and Netflix has nothing to do with Warner Brothers and Blackfin and all the other documentaries. We need to have our cases severed because they're separate facts that are at issue for defamation. Buster wanted the cases in Hampton County because he believes, and so does his lawyer, Ken, that he will get a better trial in his home locale, that there's still a lot of Murdaugh loyalists there, more so than there would be in federal court in Charleston, where you draw from a wider range of geographical area. So as it stands now, there's going to be 4 defendants that are going to have their cases tried in federal court in Charleston and 4 defendants in Hampton County. Now, is it a win? I do believe it is. However, federal courts are much faster than state courts. They have what's known as rocket dockets. And so the 4 defendants who are in Hampton County will benefit from the proceedings going faster in federal court in front of Judge Gergel. In state court, they're going to have to find a judge that isn't conflicted off the case because, as you know, many of our state court judges were conflicted off the Murdaugh related cases. So they're going to have to find probably an upstate judge, and that's going to take time to filter through discovery and motions hearings. So on the face, it appears it does benefit Buster, but in the long run, because the federal cases are going to move faster, we have to wait and see.
Sure. Eric, thank you for that. Tell me, I know you're in very, very close contact with Stephen Smith's family members who have you representing them as this investigation is still wide open into his death. So first question regarding them, how do they feel about these lawsuits that Buster has filed against these media outlets?
Well, as far as the allegations, nobody wants to be falsely accused of murder. So I certainly don't blame Buster, who has the rest of his life in front of him, to have to figure out what he's going to do to be pegged as a murderer. So I don't fault him for bringing that. As far as the Smiths, they believe that this discovery process, both in the state court with the 4 state court defendants and in the federal court with the 4 federal court defendants, may yield some further evidence regarding what happened to Stephen in 2015. Remember, discovery in a civil case is so broad. It ultimately will be what is relevant and will lead to admissible evidence. So some things that you can discover ultimately don't get admissible in court, but are fair game in discovery. So we believe that ultimately, and now our reward, you're showing the billboard is 30, it's up to $50,000. We think it's going to yield some information regarding Stephen's death. So as far as the family is concerned, they applaud Buster for bringing these cases.
Eric, wanted to ask you about where things stand with the investigation. So the reward money's up, as you noted, $50,000 now as opposed to 30 the last time we spoke, which is fantastic. Any tips, anything coming in that's giving the family some hope of finding some answers?
The short answer is no. We're not getting any information from SLED other than they're saying it's an ongoing investigation. And unfortunately, this cone of silence that seems to exist in the Low Country has some steel and concrete walls.
We thought that after Alex's murder conviction that many people would come forward with facts that they have regarding what happened to Stephen, because people do know. There's enough that has traveled through the rumor mill that 5 or 6 people have a good idea of what happened to Stephen. But this cone of silence is so strong that it's going to take a Herculean act, Julie, to break them down.
You know, it's so terrible. There are so many people interested in this case and who have hearts that are breaking for Sandy Smith and everyone who loved Stephen so much. There is an anonymous tip line, right? People can do it anonymously without showing their name or faces. How might they do that, Eric?
Well, SLED has put out a phone number for people to call in with tips, and they could have called him, but we just don't know. SLED in the beginning was sharing more with us than they are now. So I'm not saying that there hasn't been any tips given. We just don't know about them. It's quite possible, since the award has been increased, Julie, that they have gotten some tips and they're acting on them. But it's really slow. You know, don't forget, this has been going on since 2021. In July, a month after the murder of Maggie and Paul, that SLED reopened this investigation, and they've also had an impaneled grand jury. It just doesn't seem to me that it would take 4 years to get some information that they would be able to bring charges on against somebody. It could be that it's you know, a negligent type of killing. Somebody didn't realize it. They left the scene of the accident. Who knows? But 4 years just seems like a long time. Really, it's longer than that, because the Department of Transportation had it basically since 2015. So now we're talking 10 years.
Yeah, you're right. It's far too long. Well, we certainly haven't forgotten about Stephen here and appreciate the update, and we're mindful that he's been a victim here. And as Buster's cases, you know, proceed through the system, of course, you know, Buster deserves a fair trial, and as do these media outlets, and Stephen deserves a justice for whatever happened to him. I hope we get some answers someday. Eric, thank you so much for the update. We'll speak again soon. Coming up next here on Opening Statements.
As you were leaving Ruth's Chris, did anything unusual happen after you left?
Yes.
What was that?
It was when we saw her husband get out the car on the entryway.
Family members telling the court about the night of the shooting in the bedtime murder case of Jermaine Bass. What really happened? We're digging into the story next.
Emergency. Can you get someone over here now? Well, okay, what does he look like? He's O.J. Simpson. I think you know his record.
They were broken up, and he was still madly in love with her.
He didn't think that he was a batterer. And I said, hey, man, you hit her. You're a batterer.
This is a murder case. They felt it had nothing to do with the murders.
Trial and Error. Why did O.J. win? A Court TV original series. New episode Sunday night, 8 Eastern and Pacific. Only on Court TV.
Well, now for what's tipping the scales in the bedtime murder trial, a family member shedding some light on the defendant's actions the night that he allegedly shot his 2 kids, killing one of them. The niece of Jermaine Bass's wife, Shirley Bass, took the stand on Tuesday and was asked about a birthday celebration for her Aunt Shirley on August 29th, 2022. The family had taken her to Ruth's Chris Steakhouse, but the kiddos stayed home. China Gadsden is that niece, and she described Jermaine Bass stopping traffic to approach their car when they were driving home.
You're saying that he comes to the driver's side and he asked Shirley if she had been drinking and kind of why isn't she driving her own car, right?
Yes, exactly.
Do you ever see any kind of weapon?
No.
Does Shirley answer him?
I don't remember.
Okay, you described it as Shirley just kind of brushes it off.
Yeah.
And then he goes back to his truck and he drives off?
Yes.
Okay, investigators say when Shirley got home, she kissed her beautiful babies goodnight and then soon after heard the gunshots. So what really happened before the shooting? You know, it has all of us talking here at Court TV in our newsroom. It seems like there's so much more to the story that we're just not hearing. Let's bring in our attorney guests, Casey Early and Franz Borghardt. So Mr. Bass is all amped up. Apparently he's mad. His wife's out to dinner, enjoying herself. And I would say, acts, a little bit like a maniac, following them, tailgating them, apparently really unsafely, driving behind them in his car, getting them to pull over and have this confrontation where he's questioning, his niece by way of marriage, about why she's driving, why his wife isn't. And then it's like there's a big blank, then we don't know what happened, and then the shooting goes down. Casey, your thoughts on this? How it seems like there's some important gaps that need to be filled in.
Julie, I think the gaps are that clearly there was some marital discord going on. He wasn't invited to the birthday party. He was supposed to be at home taking care of the kids. He could have been intoxicated. He could have been on drugs. And that is not a defense to anything in this case. And we know that when he arrives home, not only is his daughter murdered in this case, his son is also shot. And the defense in this case is that he does not remember and that the 5 shots were accidental. That's not going to fly, because even if you don't remember because you were allegedly intoxicated or on some type of substance, that's not going to work because there's DNA that's on the gun. It's your DNA, and I know that may be testimony that it was JJ's DNA, but it doesn't matter because we know that JJ this was not a self-inflicted wound. So bottom line, this was not an accidental discharge. There was no forced entry. He has no defense, which is why he's defaulting to he does not remember, and it's going to be a guilty verdict.
Okay, Sia, thank you. I agree. Franz, your thoughts on the story? Does it seem that there's more to this that we just don't know?
Well, everything Casey has, as always, said is brilliant, right? And she's dead on. There's not much of a defense. And look, the gap, while we all want to know what happened in that time period, we kind of know what happened, right? He had been escalating. It had been percolating. He decided he wanted to shoot her, and that's what he did. So really, anything in that gap, unless there's some kind of, and look, by saying, I don't remember what happened, he can't claim self-defense. He can't claim that he was in some way provoked. He was clearly the aggressor. So, look, the Titanic is going down. He's on it. It is what it is. And sometimes this is the boat you're in. And there probably wasn't much of a plea offer for this case. So, it's going to be, sometimes we try cases that are patently obvious because that's what we have to do. And he will likely be convicted.
Mm-hmm. Right. I couldn't agree more, Franz. Yeah, so apparently, initially, the state of Florida was pursuing this as a capital case. They withdrew their petition to seek the death penalty for him. Not sure why, but now here we are at trial. Don't know what, if anything, was offered as a plea to him. I do think we're going to get more answers when Mom comes in. I would think maybe today is the day we're going to hear from Shirley Bass. Casey, how telling do you think her testimony is going to be about whether this guy did try to kill both his kids and, in fact, kill one of them?
It's going to be very convincing. Even when you look at the body cam footage, she had an idea that it was him because she kept saying, if my son dies, I swear to God, like she was really talking to him. It was not, who did this or how did this happen conversation. And those words, those initial words after the shooting, it's very telling. So she's going to bring that empathy and compassion towards the victims in this case. And the jury is going to take all of that into consideration. And I agree with my colleague. Sometimes you just have to try the case. And in this case, we may never know his motive, but thankfully the state does not have to prove motive. They have to prove that a crime was committed and he is the person that committed the crime, and all hands are pointed towards him. He's definitely culpable of this terrible incident.
Casey, thank you for that reminder. I think sometimes it's easy to get so caught up in the why, and I'm sure you and Franz have been there. I've been there. Sometimes you just have those cases that are so nauseating and so puzzling, and no matter all the investigation work that you've done, you just don't get the answer of why it happened. Sometimes you just have to resign yourself to the fact that I'm not going to know why. This is horrible, but I'll never find out why. And it's more common than people probably realize in the criminal justice system. We will leave it there for just a couple of minutes because this case is about to start up at 9 a.m. and we're going to go there together. Franz, you're coming with us. What a treat that is. Thank you for that, Casey. We've got to let you get off to court. Thank you both for your time and your expertise this morning. That's all for opening statements, my friends. But guess what? If you like the episode, you can watch it again. Go to courttv.com, click on the Shows tab.